tell us a bit about the journey of like unlocking features of YouTube and actually using them to their advantage.
Everything sort of starts in the northern hemisphere and then falls down.
What would I say to those channels? The most valuable tool is...
I think the main message from this podcast will be that when you start a YouTube channel, it really is a marathon, not a sprint.
My recent travel to London, I didn't know that our market in London was that big. I knew because of stats, but you know, when you look at stats, you just see 5%, 10%. You don't see actual people until you like plug in like, hey, this is not just a percentage. These are actual people who are living in a different continent.
Hi, I'm Hannah, known online as Fabulous Hannah.
And I'm Simi, known online as Tamago2474, and welcome to Making It, a podcast for creators by creators.
We're both YouTubers ourselves, and on this show we talk with other creators about their journey to success and what they've learned along the way.
Today we're joined by Mpumi Ledwaba, whose focus on promoting wisdom and wellness has helped countless people all over South Africa and beyond. But where to even begin when describing Mpumi? I'm going to have to just read it off right here. She's a serial entrepreneur, a public speaker, a podcaster, a writer, a YouTuber, and more, on top of being a wife and mother to 2 young children. We're also happy to be joined by her husband, Brenden, a multi-genre musician, pianist, composer, producer, as well as being the person behind the camera and in the editing bay, who actually helped Mpumi get started on her channel. Talk about a power couple. Now, one of the first videos you'll find on her channel is fittingly titled First Things First. And as far as first videos go, this one is pretty good. She's 24, sitting in her bedroom, having a casual one-to-one with what would soon become a very engaged audience. And she's telling the story of her journey so far, from her, studying to be an accountant to her deciding to pursue her true passion of starting a business. Mpumi and Brenden, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Geez, what an incredible introduction. I feel like everywhere, I should take you with me everywhere and you should introduce me wherever I go.
I'd be happy to.
Okay,
it sounds like a lot of travel. And Brenden, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Such an honor to be on this podcast with you guys. And yeah, hopefully we can learn something from you guys.
Absolutely,
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So, just on the note of your first video, could you tell us a bit about that moment, deciding that you're going to upload and start this YouTube journey?
Sure. I think I'll probably let Brenden speak on the technical side, but for me, it wasn't even about that. I wasn't a consumer of YouTube. I thought YouTube was just for music videos at the time. I know I was a little behind, but my husband he loves research. He loves watching stuff. So he knew what was happening in the YouTube world. And a lot of my audience on different social apps were like, you should start a YouTube channel. And I was like, what am I going to say? How does it even work? And eventually Brenden convinced me that, look, you've got something to say. I think you should do it. And my condition was, I will be in front of the camera. I will tell the stories. I'll come up with the content, but I never want to touch or switch on a camera. And I think 5, 6, 7 years in, I still haven't switched on a camera. I don't know how to autofocus. All I know is to be in front of the camera and keep it going. So yeah. And I think Brenden can share how his first video upload and shooting went. I think it was a little more of a sweat job on his side.
Yeah, it was very scary. I think when you start, you're obviously looking at the people that are doing at the highest level, and you're trying to learn, and you're looking at what they say you should do. And we realized we didn't have any of the equipment. We didn't have a camera. We didn't have tripods. We didn't have lighting. So we had to maximize on the natural light in the house. We had to shoot at sunset, golden hour, or whatever, so the light wasn't harsh. And it's all those things, and we, grabbed some shoe boxes and created our own tripod stand with that. And yeah, but I think essentially what it taught us was that at the end of the day, it's about the content. And luckily enough, Mpumi's content was good and sound, and it was already refined because her life was already sort of in a place where she had learned all these things that she was talking about, and she was sharing from a deeper place.
Do you know what? I wish my boyfriend was more into YouTube. I would love to not have to do any of the editing side of it, sorting all that out. Honestly, it sounds like the dream team. So I'm interested to know that dynamic where obviously Mpumi, you're in front of the camera, Brenden, you're behind the camera, and it's always been that way. How do you find that because obviously you're married as well? What's it like working together?
Sure, it is really is hard. But I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he actually gave me the stats that apparently couples who work together stay married longer or stay married. You know, the odds are there's a favor for working together. But during the process, it does get really hard for us to separate work and home. In the beginning, it was easy because YouTube was a fun thing. It was just another thing that we were doing. So there wasn't a lot of pressure. Brenden had his career going. I had my business, my salon business growing. And so a lot of things weren't dependent on my YouTube channel working until we saw the opportunity and the growth. And I'm very interested in the business world, and Brenden is very interested in production and the highest quality. So now we've got two people. One is an extremist in business and one is an extremist in production and quality. And now we have to come together. So the end product is magical, but the process and of understanding each other's working languages. So you can imagine a numbers person versus a creative. I'm a structure, work starts at 9, need to get it. And then you've got a creative who goes with the flow. And each person needs that. I need my structure, and he needs his flow. And on a bad day, it doesn't work. But on a good day, it really, really works. So it is quite challenging. But we've been doing it for so long. We've tried out working with other people and separating. But I think it gives us a sense of purpose, and it helps us develop our other skills, our EQ, our communication skills, and all of that, so that it can work in the business, because the business is meaningful. The YouTube business is meaningful to us. So yeah, I'll say it's challenging, but it's worth it. Brenden, do you share the same?
Yeah, what she said.
Wow.
No, that's really cool, because we have had creators on the past, particularly Jade Beeson, who mentioned that she sees there being two types of creators. There are sort of the planners, the more strategic people, and then the more creative people. And so it seems that you have found a way to, combine those and really make a good team that works together. For the listeners at home and the viewers, could you tell us a bit more about your channel, what you do, and what your goals are for the channel in the content you create?
Sure. So it started, when I started, there wasn't really this 5-year plan of this is how it's going to be. I think when I entered, it was what is happening. And everybody at the time was vlogging. And naturally, I thought that, well, that's what I have to do. But my first video, First Things First, was an introduction, which I guess it's the breadcrumbs to what I'm doing now, because I now have conversations, and I didn't know it then. At the time, I just thought, you know what, let me introduce myself before I get into this vlogging thing. And then I started vlogging, and it was fun to a certain extent, but it never really felt like home to me. Brenden always had to be there, and if he wasn't there, all my content was either blurry or I'd miss moments, because I like being present. And I had to start finding my own niche within the YouTube space, because I was growing frustrated that this is what's expected of me, but this isn't really me. And I started playing around with, let's have conversations together. I think we did some Q&As together, which eventually became a docu-series called Our Love Journey. And then the Wisdom and Wellness podcast started as also conversations with other people that I would invite, that I was interested in their journeys. So each thing has built up, and the way that I view my channel now, I almost look at it as a production house, if I can call it that, for lack of a better phrase or better word, where I come up with concepts and we create them. Like I said, the I Love Journey docuseries and the Wisdom and Wellness podcast, and we've done some cooking shows. So I've got this network is the word, this network where I produce these different shows. And so versus trying to treat it as what other people are thriving in, like I've seen vloggers who excel at vlogging and I can't get there, and I decided, well, maybe let me not try to fit in the box, but how can I use this platform the best way that speaks to me, that feels natural and comfortable for me, but also serves my audience and makes the most out of the YouTube platform. And so getting to your question, what you can expect on my platform right now is a whole lot of podcast conversations where I invite people who are doing exceptionally well in their respective fields, be it an actress, be it a another creative or a business person, and we just talk about the journey of life and uncover their purpose and tools that we can share with the audience on how to be the best versions of themselves. And I should actually change it to wisdom and wellness, but Mpumi Ledwaba still works.
It still works. We love that personal branding.
One thing that I find really interesting about your channel, Mpumi, is the way I view it. It's kind of like a TV channel, and then you've got like the different mini series, the different programs, for example. I think when a lot of people start a YouTube channel, they think they have to do one thing, they have to fit into a niche, you hear it all the time, I'm going to find my niche, I'm going to find what I'm going to have to do. I think your channel is a perfect example if you don't have to do that. You can spread your wings, try out different things. Is that something that you've consciously tried to do to try and find what you enjoy the most, or do you kind of see what performs best on your channel and think, okay, I'm going to run with that one?
I think it's the best of both worlds, and Brenden will jump in here. So he's got the gift of forecasting because he loves doing research, so he can kind of tell where the industry is going, where the YouTube world is going. For example, I think when we started, when we were still doing content, long format was working, but he quickly realized that people's attention span is getting shorter and shorter, and we need to adjust our content to that. So those are some of the things that we implement where we do our research, what's working, what's not working, and then we implement it into our vision. So personally, I'm a risk taker. I like trying new things until I find the thing that works for me. So it is a whole lot of that where I didn't know I have interviewing skills. I didn't know that I can hold a conversation. But through trying it out, I realized, okay, I'm good at this. This is a conversation that sparks me up and, keeps me going. This is more receptive, but I need to add a little bit of this. So it's a combination of trying out, finding what feels home and natural to me, but also listening to the audience. And as much as we don't, what's this producer's name? Rick Rubin. He speaks about the audience comes last. And the whole concept of that is, yes, we must take feedback from the audience, but don't create necessarily for them. It has to feel natural for you first. So it's a combination of that, what feels home and natural and easy and exciting for me, and then also bringing in the audience. At the end of the day, I still have to serve them, okay? And then we bring in Brenden's forecasting skill. So it's really a combination of a lot of things, and that's why it's a journey. So there's no stop saying, hey, I figured this out. Things are constantly changing, or I'm constantly changing and evolving. My audience is. So it's a combination of stuff that makes it work. And sometimes it doesn't and we stop, and sometimes it works and we continue. Yeah. Brenden, do you want to add on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things we try to do is really, my job is really to focus on how are we presenting the content. So Mpumi will obviously have all these ideas, and my job is to see how can we present these in the best way so that they can flourish on the platform, because as you guys know, the algorithm it continues to change. So the analytics are there to help us and for us to see what's happening and how is the audience receiving the content. And sometimes the issue is not the content, it's the way that it's being delivered. So it's our job to see and to make those adjustments and to say, like for instance, we had gone more to back to slightly shorter content where we do like 8 to 12 minutes, but then you put out a video for 22 minutes and you realize, actually people are now starting to retain a lot of this content, and the retention is a lot higher than it was before. So maybe there's a shift in the algorithm. So then you start to then work on that, and now you put out your next few videos to be slightly longer, and you see that there is a change. So it's just about trying different things and being open, like Mpumi said, to seeing, to making mistakes, to having a video not do well. You can't live on the analytics page, obviously. A lot of the content sometimes has to feel like you're doing important work. It has to feel like you're trying to contribute something into the world as opposed to just playing the game. So finding a balance between really being on the know in terms of what's happening with the numbers and how are people receiving the content in terms of when are we posting it, how long are they watching it, but also, is this something that we believe in? Is this something that's actually making a difference? If we took off our content from the platform, would people miss it? And sort of striking that balance, I think, has been really the key thing for us to do.
Right, right. I think it's super interesting what you just said actually about if we removed our content from the platform, would people miss it? That really gets you thinking about the purpose of your content. It's not just uploading for the sake of it, but actually trying to have that impact. And I think that's really cool. Another thing you mentioned earlier is about, there's the algorithm side of what does the algorithm like, but you're also trying to keep in time with the audience trends, not just in terms of what's popular, but what do they actually like? What are they looking for? You mentioned that you started noticing longer videos were actually becoming a bit more popular, and so you were more comfortable making those longer videos. When it comes to actually noticing those trends, what tools do you use? Like in the analytics, what specifically are you looking at? How are you like sort of predicting, okay, I think this shift is happening in this direction?
So obviously YouTube Studio is it's your best friend. So every time we put something out, we look at how it's doing. Personally, I'll go in there and I'll see in terms of growth, how is it growing as a video? Again, the retention time, how long are people actually watching this video? And so, but I'm also subscribed to a lot of content creators that actually sort of do research on what the algorithm is doing. And so they'll sort of announce whenever there's an announcement, because I don't know where these announcements happen, but I follow a lot of creators who will say they've started doing this and they've started doing this. And then I'll tell Mpumi, I'll say, hey, Mr. Beast says. So, and then she'll be like, okay, cool, let's do it. Because our goal, like I said, because we do podcasts, it also makes us quite versatile in how we can put out our content. Because you have an hour, 30 minutes of footage, you can go either way. You can find really catchy hooks in the content, or you can go in depth with it. And it's just about where the platform is at that point, what's working, what's everyone else doing, and sort of slotting in your content and your perspective to suit that. But yeah, it's about having your ear on the ground and seeing what other creators are doing. How are they innovating in terms of putting out their content? And when you see that, you look at how it's working and how their page is growing, and then you try and implement that into your own page.
For sure. I think one thing that's super important as a creator is actually watching content, so you can have an idea of what's going on the platform, so it is very useful that you do look at a lot of content so that you're in the loop with that. No, definitely.
Yeah, something that I found really interesting in one of our previous conversations, actually, Brenden, was when you said that you watch kind of like US or UK creators to see what trends are coming up. And then obviously, because you guys are based in South Africa, you use those trends to your advantage. You may be sort of like, even a year down the line, you can kind of predict what's coming up. So can you tell us a little bit about that research? Because I think other people listening to this podcast would find that so interesting.
Yeah, so we realized like a few years ago that everything sort of starts in the northern hemisphere and then falls down, especially technologically. So whenever there is beta programs, we don't have access to them, but we know they're there because we are on the platform, so we see it. And so being plugged into what's happening in the UK and in the US, it kind of really helps for us because we can see where everything is moving towards, and a lot of the content creators will share it and they'll say, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing. And so whenever that happens, we then just kind of get ready and prepare ourselves, put ourselves in a position for whenever that feature is unlocked here, we can then take advantage of it. In fact, it's not just in content, it's actually just in everything.
Right. It's really interesting how you've been able to turn what some could perceive as a disadvantage, having to wait to get access to features, into an advantage because it gives you foresight. You can see maybe what mistakes others are making and make sure to avoid those, and you can see what things others are doing really well, and you can make a plan of how to implement them into your own plans. Even on your channel, Mpumi, you make use of so many of YouTube's features. It would seem that you just had it locked in from the beginning. We're going to make use of memberships. We're going to make use of, joining a partner program. We're going to do all this thing. But obviously, as with every creator, it's a gradual thing over time. Could you tell us a bit about the journey of like unlocking features of YouTube and actually using them to their advantage?
Yeah. I think it goes back to what Brenden's sharing, watching other creators that we look up to, that inspires us, is very interesting. And we researchers, even though we research in different ways, but we researchers. And once you get into things, because another thing with a lot of creatives is we get stuck in the research and then we don't implement, and then we're just stuck with a whole lot of information and nothing's happening. So for us, in as much as there's a lot of research that goes into what we're doing, we are building the plane as we fly it. So I'm looking, I'm literally putting out these podcasts, but then I realize like now the world is changing in that when I have a guest, for example, a celebrity on my podcast, there's certain things that I've created such a safe space that a person would share voluntarily. However, the internet is no longer a safe space like that. So there's certain parts of a video where on a different platform, it's a safer space. But perhaps putting a longer video on YouTube, people can just screen grab 3 minutes. So then that's why now we have to look at where can we put exclusive content so that my guest feels safe, and so that next time I invite someone on my podcast, they feel safe to come because their content wasn't just snapped at 3 minutes without context and then being spread. You know, we have to think of things like that. So that's when we jumped into membership. So now on YouTube, we probably have like 10 minutes of a video where we know that our guest is safe, is protected, everything is in context. But in membership, people who are paying get to have the full thing. But I also know that my guest is protected. And also people want that community aspect. I realized during COVID, a lot of us went into shells, and I think a sense of community was lost. And in the beginning with my channel, it was all about my story, my becoming, my purpose, how to do this. And then post-lockdown, a year or two in, I realized that my number one need that I'm fulfilling is a need of community. People need a community, a space of belonging, like-minded people together with. And that's what membership offers. It's like like-minded people who come together for the purpose of learning about wellness.
So with your audience in Mpumi, are most of your audience based in South Africa, or are they global?
I think my global reach is growing. We have, majority is South Africa, but second on the list, I've got Botswana, our neighboring countries. I've got Botswana, I've got Namibia, I've got Zimbabwe, and we're starting to have footprint in the UK. I actually realized when I was there that a lot of South Africans moved from South Africa to become to live in the UK. So there's a huge South African market in the UK. We're starting to penetrate the US market. So little by little, we're getting footprint all over the world. Yeah, but majority is still in South Africa.
Are you guys kind of like planning a strategy to become more global, to get more viewers in the US or the UK?
Brenden, why are you blushing?
No, because I don't think we're planning a strategy, but like I think the world generally now is so much smaller because of social media. So like Mpumi said, there's a lot of diaspora in every country. So everyone wants to feel that they belong and they want to get in touch with where they're from. And so that's a great way to enter every country's market, is through people who actually, you know, are championing you. And I find that a lot of, like Mpumi said, a lot of the girls that move from here to the UK, and, you know, it's obviously a culture shock. Their best friend would be Mpumi and Mpumi's podcast. That's how they keep to the ground and how they remember who they are and what they relate to best. And then they share it with a friend, and then that friend shares it with their husband, and then the husband's like, oh, she's got a husband. Her husband is a cool guy. I'll watch this channel. And it's kind of like a ripple effect. So it's not something that we planned, but I think it's just the nature of growth. If you can get to a higher level in your own kind of space, then you start to infiltrate other spaces.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on with what Brenden's saying. It's exactly how it happened. But my recent travel to London, I didn't know that our market in London was that big. I knew because of stats, but you know, when you look at stats, you just see 5%, 10%. You don't see actual people until you like plug in like, hey, this is not just the percentage. These are actual people who are living in a different continent who are interested. And so when I visited when I was in the UK about 2 weeks ago, I got so many DMs of people asking, hey, can you do a meet and greet? Can you do a meet and greet? And so when I met a friend there, I'm like, I should probably do a meet and greet here, you know, because you don't think of it as actual people until you're like, there's actual people here. So now our strategy is gearing towards how can we start tapping in physically in the global market. So before we were happy with, you guys can come here, but it's why not go there? Why not tap into that? And probably a medium to long-term strategy, but now it definitely is a strategy. It wasn't a strategy before.
It is always so interesting to actually be able to see how global your audience really is. Sometimes when I'm live streaming, I'll ask people, what time is it for you? Because I know people are tuning in from all sorts of different time zones. And I'll just realize, wow, I have people from Thailand, I have people from South Africa, I have people from all over watching the videos. Obviously, you see it, like you mentioned, you see it in the stats, but it's not until someone comes up to you and says, hey, I like your stuff, that you realize, wow, this really is all over the world. So yeah, that's really cool. Hannah, you recently traveled yourself. Did you have any sort of experience like that? Or have you had that kind of shock of like, wow, people are watching from all over?
It was actually, I've had a few people, like when I've been on holidays and stuff, like a girl, I was on holiday with my mum and dad and I was in Cape Verde. And this girl came up to me and she was like, oh my God, I love your videos. And my mum and dad were just stood there like, we're literally on holiday. What is going on? It's crazy. But when you see people, when you meet them, and you do just kind of forget when you see their usernames, you see the comments. Obviously, it means a lot. But when you see them in person, you think, oh my goodness, my videos are actually making a difference to these people's lives. And it might not be such a drastic difference, but sometimes they might just need that 20 minutes or hour-long podcast to listen to distract them from normal life. And it is kind of like building a friendship with your viewers. One thing with you and Pumi that I'm really interested to hear more about is, obviously you decided to dive into podcasts, but I know before you did that, podcasts weren't actually very popular in South Africa. And is that because you kind of realised that other people were doing it in different countries? You decided, actually, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start a podcast. What are the benefits that you've found from doing that and from uploading that long form content?
Sure. Like I said, even in the beginning, when I started a podcast, I didn't know that there's such a thing as a podcast. And Brenden had to break it down for me. And there was a big deal that happened, and he was like, we should jump onto this. It's blowing up in America, and I know that in a few years' time it's gonna be a thing in South Africa. And I was like, okay, dude, it's fine. Like, you've proven that your methods work. I'll just get onto the content, you know? You get us on the platform, whichever platform you say we're doing, deal with that. I will come up with the content. And when we started podcasting, and I remember when we loaded our trailer, we did like a little trailer that we had to tell people that we're getting into podcasts, and people were like, what's a podcast? And so we started podcasting in South Africa when we still had to introduce it to the masses. So instead of click the link to go here, it was like, okay, where am I going? How does this work? Is it an app? Do I download? Where do I find it? So we had to start by educating what a podcast is. And it's taken a whole lot of time. And what we realized with South Africa is we are touch people. I think in the States, in the UK, it might be different. People are okay with just having a podcast, listening to it, and that's enough. But we realized that we had to make it video because people need to see us. People need to see this whole thing happening because they didn't understand, you know, is it radio? Is it not radio? And it's like, no, it's not radio. Okay, but where's the video? So we had to make a way we had to softly introduce it. And now, funny enough, in my strategy, because video obviously takes a long time, but now, and we did a whole high production, but now we've gotten so comfortable with our audience understanding podcasting that we have a more relaxed setting now. So now it's no longer a big deal about the set, but it's okay, we like the conversation. But it's taken 5 years. And even in making money, because I know the first question was, how do you make money on podcasts? we haven't made money for a good 5 years directly from podcasting. It's only now that brands in South Africa are starting to believe in podcasting. They're seeing the trajectory. They're seeing that, okay, this has value. This is better. The ROI is worth it. But it's like for 4 or 5 years, you're just proving a point. You're just proving that this is going to work. And you have to keep believing in this thing that you're doing, even when others don't believe in. And you have to keep building the numbers. And it's once again that building that airplane as you fly it, and you're changing here, and how does it adjust to the South African market? Yes, this is working in the US. Yes, this is working here, but is it working here? Where can we make some small touches and small changes? And now I think we're starting to feel, we even have awards now for podcasts, which I think started last year. So you can see that there's growth. But when we started, we didn't know that we'd win an award for podcasting. It was like, what's a podcast? So that's been, I hope I answered your question, but that's kind of been the journey.
Right. So in a way, you have to like pioneer things, you know, there's no like proven roadmap within South Africa for it. So you have to be like, guys, trust us, this is going to work. Which is a big deal because, you know, when you're doing something, you say you were doing it for 5 years before the podcast itself was able to make money. There has to be that kind of self-belief and belief in what you're doing in order to reach that point. And I think the idea of introducing things to people is no small feat. I mean, if we go on to things like, you know, joining the YouTube Partner Program, for example, a lot of people don't know what the benefits are. And so having heard you speak about that, they'll be able to know, oh, this is something that would actually be beneficial for my channel. Could you tell us a bit about what it was like when you first got accepted into it? And do you think there was like a tipping point that enabled you to get accepted into the program?
Sure. Getting into the program, firstly, we have to be honest about money. We need money to film this. We need money for the cameras. The camera I'm using now, I bought it because of the partnership, you know, and that's what it's such great value to be able to up and level up your production, but being assisted in that, because a lot of people, in the beginning, you're not making a lot of money, but also you're looking at creators who've already clocked it and they've got the high quality. And it's like, how do I get there? I think at that time, I wasn't so invested in my analytics. It didn't really bother me. I was just filming videos and that's it. But then you get monthly meets and you get to learn and understand your audience a little better. And then the networking, I'll always emphasize on networking, having events, monthly events or classes where I also get to share what I know. I'm reading The Diary of a CEO, and Stephen speaks about that if you want to be a master at something, you have to teach it. You know, you first learn it, but the more you teach it, you become a master at it. And I think the classes, and even this gives us the opportunity where you feel like, wow, I'm getting more confident in this thing that I'm doing because people actually want to know about it. So those are small value adds that you don't really consider. But when you look in hindsight, it's like, that's where I got my confidence from. My confidence was built from that, being recognized that I can actually educate on the space. And then there's the physical needs. I looked up a lot to Patricia and Patricia Bright, and we got to meet Patricia Bright, and she came to South Africa for our end year function, and to hear from her, she's one of those who spoke about the many ways you can grow and utilize your YouTube platform, how you can create products from that, digital products and physical products, and she basically broke down her whole business strategy for us in person, and we got to ask her some questions. And it's just moments like that add so much value when you put them together in your growth strategy.
I think the main message from this podcast will be that when you start a YouTube channel, it really is a marathon, not a sprint. You really do have to be in it for the long run, and there's so much good that can come out of running a YouTube channel. You know, it's not just creating and uploading a video. Like you say, there are digital products, there are physical products. But I'm really interested because a lot of people, I think there's actually around 11,000 channels in South Africa, Kenya and Nigeria that are eligible for memberships but haven't decided to utilise that. So what's your main piece of advice for those people, Mpumi? I feel like you're really good with the quotes. You're good with the mindset. I feel like you've had a really valuable mindset shift. So what would you say to those channels?
Sure. I think what would I say to those channels? The most valuable tool is community. And another thing with community, when people are in a space, when you create a safe space for people, like-minded people, where we know, okay, we come together because we like cameras, or we come together because we like wellness. When people are grouped together with the similar interests, they're more likely to achieve their goals. And when someone achieves their goals, because on Mpumy's membership, once I joined Mpumy's membership, my goals were achieved, they're more likely to tell the next person. And that's how your membership grows. The best form of marketing is word of mouth. So in doing that, and even what's also valuable in having a membership is having the feedback. But it's not now feedback from critics, because when you open it up to everybody, you get a lot of critics. Some people just have something to say and they've never done it before, or they don't care about you. They've never complimented you. But when you create a membership, you create a safe space where these people are willing to spend $20 to listen to you. So when you ask them, hey guys, should we add A or B? They give you such valuable feedback that you can put back into your membership to add more value back to them. So it's just like value, value, value. Value from them, value from you. And this community space continues to grow. And so whichever direction you choose to grow in your career, whether I decide to open shop, I've already created this close knit of people who believe so much in what I'm doing that in whichever direction I go into, they're my first people that I go to. When I'm trialing something, when I want to test out whatever I want to introduce, they're the first people I go to because it's safe to make mistakes there. It's safe to try out things there. It's safe to grow there. So I really encourage membership. It's a great learning curve. It's a safe space, and it's exciting to watch your own members grow. For example, just speaking on membership, when I started one of my challenges, which is a running challenge called I Run November, where we run about 100 kilometers a month, and you can run it or walk it, I invited a few people, some who had never run in their lives. And 3 years later, one of the ladies sent me a picture of her finishing a marathon. And she said, this started with I Run November. And it's like, whoa, I've never even run a marathon before. But to hear that, it's so encouraging. It's just, it's lifelong achievements that add so much generational value to someone's life. So yeah, I mean, I've just gone really deep with membership, but all in all, it's definitely worth it. But be clear about why you're doing a membership. If it's to create a community, be honest. I just want to create a community. If it's I want to test things out, be clear about that so that you can prepare service-based and also be honest with your audience. People just want clear communication, and then your people will stay, and your people and the ones who are not your people will go, and you'll be able to enjoy memberships. So
obviously, when you run a YouTube channel, community is such a massive part of that, and that especially comes with memberships as well. I think it's kind of like a circle of trust. You trust your viewers, you trust the people that comment and watch your videos, and they also trust you and your opinion and the information you're giving them. And that's a really big factor when it comes to working with brands. So, Mpumi, can you tell us a little bit about which brands you work with, how you navigate that, and a little bit about working with brands on YouTube?
Yeah, so working with brands, actually the way it happened was so organic. It was, I still had my salon running, and it wasn't really a thing. It wasn't a thing where people quit their jobs to do it, you know. And I was during the natural hair era, and I had just cut my hair. So on my channel, I was sharing that journey of how I take care of my natural hair, educating, but not educating in a sense that I'm the expert, but let's journey together. And while doing that, a brand came to me like, hey, we would like to work with you. And at first I was like, oh yeah, free product. You know, you're just happy to receive products, and then they offer money. And it's like, hold up, this is an entire career. And it started like that. And the more I created for that first brand, the more other brands saw what I could do. And I just want to emphasize on this, that it doesn't matter how little you're getting paid, or even just if it's a product exchange, you need to do everything to the highest quality or with excellence, the best way you can, because people are always watching. And the more I created for this one brand, the more other brands started hopping on. And how I ended up closing my salon after lockdown was when I had 1 month and I got a brand campaign that I could do in a sitting in my house that paid me more than an entire month of a salon. Obviously, considering the overheads of a salon, the expenses, I was like, I can do this in my house and make this amount of money. But obviously, it doesn't just start that way. It's how much value can you give? And because my community trusts me, they trust my recommendations, I'm certain of my ROI, like that I do bring a return on investment for brands. So working with brands has been amazing. It started by getting a script and this is what you do, but now it's evolved. My brand partner over the last year or two has been Dove, and I call it a brand partner because we are working together. They're coming into what I'm doing and I'm coming into what they're doing, and we're making the visions work together. But that comes with long-term building of having a community that hears you, having a community that trusts you, and having brands that also trust you and plug into your vision. So it's been an evolution of how I work and partner with brands.
No, that's fantastic to hear, because a lot of creators nowadays, especially seeing how other creators are doing it, do aspire to work with brands and stuff like that. So to hear that you haven't only worked with brands, but truly become a partner where you can help shape the campaigns as well is very aspirational. Another aspirational aspect of what you do is that you've managed to build your channel, build your business to the point where you have a sort of team of people that help you produce the videos and produce the content that you produce. Because you do produce a lot of content. You have the podcasts, you have the videos, you even have events you host. Could you tell us a bit about how you went about growing that team? Because that's something a lot of creators struggle with. Like, where do I even begin?
It is hard. It is hard working with a team. But, I've had to kiss a lot of frogs to kind of find my prince or my princess team.
Right.
And I've had to develop also as a leader that it's not just telling people what to do, but you want people who are the way in which I've grown my team. I work with people who are leaders in their own space and rights, and who are content with the role that they play in. What's important with running a team is getting people who understand the nature of our business. It's almost like a first generational business where there's very little reference to how you run a team in a business like this, and we are learning on the go, and you want people who understand that and who are leaders in their own rights, and who are willing to stretch themselves. The roles, even though we may have a role given, but it far extends, you do whatever is necessary. But a team is great, but I would always advise when building a team, one step at a time. Hire slow, fire fast.
Obviously, you are literally a powerhouse of a creator, but not only that, you're also a mum, so you've got two beautiful little children. Is that one of the reasons why you wanted to hire a team? Did you find that it gives you more downtime?
Yeah, and also, I think my work, the way in which I work, my slogan is lean and efficient. Let's keep it here, but what's the quickest way of doing things? And Brenden and I could have still continued to do things, just the two of us, but for our goals, we needed other brains, other people who know better. And my strength is in sitting in front of the camera and sharing a message. My strength is not necessarily in design. And when my attention is split in things that I'm not good at, then I can't give 100% to what I am good at. So it's important as you grow to understand, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and then let me focus on strengthening my strengths, and then have people who are strong in my weaknesses. And so that's kind of been the strategy. But even with my children, it allows me time to spend more time with them as well. Yeah.
Right. I think, making time for yourself as a creator is something that's very important, because it can be a job where you're wearing so many hats that you can sort of neglect the other things. So it is good that you've been able to find ways to make sure that you make time for those other things. Something that you mentioned earlier when it came to your content strategy is that, you were seeing that vlogs were doing really well, but you didn't want to necessarily have to broadcast your life. So you were trying to find other things that you could make content about, so you can provide value that isn't just, look at me, look at all the things in my life that I perhaps don't want to share. Would it be accurate to say that you're somewhat of a private person when it comes to what you share online?
Yeah, actually very, very private, and it doesn't seem like it because I talk a lot and I share a lot. But I just learned that there's certain parts of my life that I want to enjoy and keep to us sacred. Initially, we would share our family, and I think that's important. Representation of a Black family. I thought that was important, but we got to a point where I was like, actually, this is a part that I want to keep to myself. Growing online comes with growing criticism, and there's certain parts of my life where I'm mature enough to take the criticism. But when it comes to my kids, I don't know how I might act. So rather, let's take it off. And so it's important to have self-awareness that, are you willing to take, if you're taking compliments, you have to be open to taking the criticism. So when with my kids, I'll take the compliments, but I wasn't willing to take the criticism. And even in our family dynamics, we have to protect that. So I have grown to be a way more private person and sharing what I know adds value without stripping away from me.
I always love hearing perspectives from creators who are a mum, because I dream of having children one day, and I'm so undecided on whether or not to show them online, and finding that balance between work and family time and where it kind of merges. But your perspective has been really interesting to hear about that, Mpumi, and it just shows that you don't have to decide something and stick with it. Obviously, you can show your children, and then you can decide, actually, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore, and I do want to separate it. So yeah, I feel like this has been a really great chat. Thank you for opening up with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, it has been incredibly useful. So thank you. And thank you, Brenden, as well, for sharing the more technical side of what you do. I think having this balance between the two of you has been invaluable to the viewers. So thank you so much. If you want a deeper dive into the topics we've covered today, we've included some helpful resources in the description below. And there you'll also find a link to Mpumi's channel so you can check out her awesome content.
And don't forget, you can also listen to this podcast on the go. You can subscribe to the YouTube Creators YouTube channel, or you can listen to the Making It podcast on YouTube Music or wherever you find your podcasts.
Thanks again to everyone for joining us on this episode of the Making It podcast. We hope to see you again soon.
It's been great. See ya.
All right. Sweet. Awesome.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.